Welcome to this week's episode of Parenting My Pocket Live Q&A. I hope you've all been keeping well and had a lovely week. Actually, 2 weeks since we were last on. I wasn't able to come on last week, unfortunately, but these things happen. It was one of those that I had to take care of. And talking of events that I have to take care of, next Wednesday, 8 p.m., I'll be having the launch of my new book, Parenting My Pocket, Parenting Q&A Volume 2. And this will be live on Zoom. You're all invited, so come along. I'm really looking forward to getting out there. We're going to be doing some Q&A. I've got the amazing Darren Scott, who's going to be on hosting duties. So no pressure on Darren, but it better be good or else he's in serious trouble. All joking aside though, I'm really looking forward to it. So we won't have a Facebook Q&A because we'll be doing the launch Q&A instead. I'll be answering questions about the book. I'll be chatting a bit about the process of writing the book. I might even see if I can hook in my wonderful editor to see if she can join us and talk about the process for her and how she found it. Maybe not though. Maybe she found it too much of a pain in the ass. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm really excited. And to that end, if you can make it, even if you can't make it, it would be great if you could fire in some questions. So if you have any parenting questions or questions about the book or just general Alan questions, you can fire them over to info@helpmetoparent.ie, the number 2, or drop me a message here on Facebook. So I'm really excited to launch the book. I can't believe it's here. It's taken longer than I expected, but I probably should have been realistic in terms of the length of time it takes to actually get a book to publish. I think every author will probably say the same. I'm working on book number 3, which is slightly different to the Q&A format. So I'm going to say, yeah, that's definitely going to be out in the next 6 months, maybe this time next year. But look, let's focus on one book at a time. So I'm really looking forward to that. And that's pretty much all I want to tell you about because it was getting close to Christmas. So we have a couple of questions this evening, and let's just crack into it. Oh no, let's see now. So Maria, hello, good to see you. I hope you've been keeping well. Caitlin, nice to see you. I hope you guys enjoy the match. Hi Louise, glad you can join. So let's crack straight into the questions. I'm getting a lot of pressure from my parents to allow my daughter to do her Holy Communion. We are not religious at all, although we did get her baptized to make sure we had the chance to get her into school. My parents mind her after school each day, as both me and my partner work. My father came to me recently and said he had been talking to her about communion, and she said to him that she wanted to dress up nice and have the day out. He told me that she would be really upset and feel left out if we didn't let her make her communion. This upset and annoyed me at the same time. My daughter knows nothing about religion and it means absolutely nothing to her either. I asked her about the conversation she had with my dad, and she said that her friends keep talking about the pretty dresses and the money you get. I told my parents that we wouldn't be doing it, and they got really upset and offended. Then my daughter came home from their house a few days later and asked why she wasn't allowed to make her communion. That Granny had said she wasn't allowed. I was so annoyed. I rely on my parents a lot for babysitting and couldn't work without them, but I don't want them having these conversations with my daughter when I'm not around. What should I do, as I want to get them to stop, but don't want them to turn around and say they won't look after our daughter? What a that's a pickle of a situation to be in, and I think it'll probably resonate with a lot of parents out there. So for those of you who don't know, in I suppose the Catholic religion, children have their first Holy Communion, I think around 7 or 8. I can't actually remember. But There is always a big fuss about it. You know, you've probably all seen the lovely dresses and the fancy suits that the young lads wear, and it's a massive day here, especially in Ireland, because a lot of the schools would still have that religious element of it, and a lot more parents, in my experience, are actually not getting their children or having their children do the communion. And I think going back to what this parent said about having their children baptized to get into school, again, that might be unusual for some of those listeners outside of Ireland, because you're kind of going, well, your child can go to school. And yes, they can, but certainly things have changed in the last number of years, which is good. But there, some Catholic schools wouldn't accept children without baptismal cert, or they would be right at the bottom of the list, which is fine if you live in a big area with a lot of schools and a large catchment area. But if you're in a small village or a small town where there isn't that many different schools to send your children to, like, ultimately probably want to send your kids to the school that their friends are going to. So that's why a lot of parents would still go and get their children baptized, just to have the option, just in case. If you're not religious, it's not right that you have to do it, but and thankfully it's happening less and less, and more schools have moved away from it, which is good. But it's still kind of in the ether as well. So this parent got their children baptized even though they're not religious. Again, a lot of parents do it, and again, in my experience, a lot of parents will let their children go through the communion and confirmation process, even though they may not be what we call a traditional religious family, where they don't normally go to mass, or they don't necessarily have prayers or talk about Jesus or the Bible or anything like that. But they'll do it because they don't want their children to feel left out. And here we have a child and been looked after by grandparents, which, like we've said millions and millions of times, children will be lost without children will be lost with their parents looking after their own children at times, because the cost of childcare is absolutely huge. But it comes with the downside as well. So your kids will love spending time with the grandparents will love spending time with your kids, but you can't control the conversations necessarily that are going on. So there's a lot of challenges going on here for this parent, because as she says, without her parents, they'd be lost. But having them have conversations, which in fairness are like, whatever, having conversations about the communion, that's probably just something that comes up as one of those things. How's your day in school? Well, my friends were talking about making their communion and I want to do the same, because kids just don't want to be left out. But as the mum found out, it's absolutely nothing to do with the religious ceremony or the religious intent. It's because she wants to wear a nice dress and get a few quid, which is absolutely fine for a 6 or 7 year old to want to do. The more challenging conversation that I would think anyway is the conversation around your mum isn't going to let you do your Holy Communion. And that conversation is not fair, it's not right, and it's not the place of the grandparent to have that conversation. So how do we get that balance? And it's really, really challenging, because as the parent says, she doesn't want to have them turn around and say, well, look, we just won't bother looking after your kids, which could possibly happen. But I think sometimes what we have to do is set a framework or a boundary for our parents if they're looking after our kids. Because again, grandparents are the best in the world. They will look after their grandchildren. They will spoil their grandchildren, and it's great that they have that relationship with their grandchildren. But the child is your child. You were their child, and your child is your child. So it's okay for you to talk about what are the parameters and what's fair for you. So you don't have to go in all guns blazing going, I can't believe you said this and you're a disgrace as a grandparent. But what you can do is, and again, it's easier said than done, sit them both down and have a simple conversation. Lay it out nice and clear but fair. Okay, look, I'd be lost without you guys. I absolutely be lost without you guys. It's great that my daughter has this relationship with you guys and that you have that relationship with her, and it helps us out a lot because we couldn't afford to have the childcare, right? Absolutely. So there's so many upsides to it, but I find it challenging when my daughter is coming home having conversations saying that I'm not allowing her to do something and that you've told her that, because it's not actually their place to say it. So maybe it's about getting clear is that, look, there are certain things that me and my partner decide for our children, and it's us making the best decision that we can at the time. And if we decide to have our children have their communion or not, that's completely up to us. We understand that you would probably like them to make their communion, but that's not what we want to do. And the exact same way that you wouldn't want us doing things that, we felt we were being forced to do, we don't want to do that either. So what I'm going to ask you to do is not have these conversations with my daughter. Because what happens is she leaves your house and she comes home, and we have to get her ready for bed, have a bit of time where we're having a nice time as parents, and get everything ready for the following day for school or for, coming to granny or granddad's. But what happens is we end up having a child who's really upset and doesn't understand. And I don't have the context of the conversation that you guys have had with her. So I don't know what's been said or not been said. I've got an upset child, and that means that we have an upset evening, and it's not good for anybody. And what it does is it makes me frustrated about or wonder about the conversations that are taking place. And I don't want that either, because I love you guys. You're my parents and you mean the world to me. But I don't want to get to a point where where you're feeling like you have to, and this is the little piece where you can kind of nip it in the bud, where you're turning around to us and saying, oh, well, look, we're not going to look after her because we have to watch what we say. I don't want that. But at the same time, I don't want my child coming home upset because of something that some conversation that's taking place here. It's not fair on anybody. So how about we don't have those types of conversations? You don't need to tell her that we won't let her make her communion. We will talk about that and we'll deal with that. Because yes, she'll probably be upset because all of her friends will be having the conversation. But trust me, your daughter will be okay if she doesn't make her communion. Within a year or two, within weeks, she'll have forgotten about it because her friends will have stopped talking about it. And I've had this with my own children where it didn't. They wanted to make a communion just because their friends were talking about it. But we said no, and it was, well, okay then. And they have never said it since. Now, if they turn around, like the old saying I throw around all the time, if they turn around at 25 and say, you were the worst dad in the world because you didn't let me make my communion, well then life has been pretty good for them, if that's the worst thing that they have to complain about as me as a parent. So be open and honest with your parents without being aggressive or accusatory or pointing the fingers, but be clear about you having to deal what you have to deal with, and that you want them to continue to have that relationship with your daughter, and that you don't want things to change because it works for them, it works for you. Because look, I'll be honest with you, you may, I don't know your parents, but sometimes there will be grandparents out there who will say, well, that's fine, we won't look after them. And I would say to any parent, call their bluff. Because if it means they're not getting to see their grandchild, I would suspect most grandparents would actually turn around and go, well, no, I'd rather have my grandchild in my life than not. Now, there'll be some out there who will be very stubborn and they won't. But maybe that's okay for them to realise that this is serious for you and this is something that you really, really are, that is important for you and your child and for them, because you want everyone to have a relationship. So have that conversation, not on the back of something happening or something occurring, because you'll be emotionally ready maybe for an argument or a disagreement, but more around the can I sit down and have a cup of coffee with you and have a chat about something? Nothing major. Let's just clear it out of the way and go from there and see how you get on. I hope that works out for you. Okay, second question. I cannot get my 14-year-old son out of bed in the morning. He stays up till 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 a.m. playing on his PlayStation or his phone. I've tried taking them off him, but he makes me feel really bad that I'm taking away his only happiness. I've heard that so many times. He doesn't particularly like school, and every single morning is a battle. I'm a single parent and I just need a break. Please give me some ideas of what I can do. It's short, to the point, and it sounds very much like an email written in just pure and utter tiredness. Okay, you're a single parent, which probably makes this a bit more challenging because you don't have somebody else there to back you up. And I completely understand that, like, most parents will second guess themselves at different times. But in my experience, especially single parents will find themselves second guessing themselves a lot because they don't have somebody else there to bounce the ideas off. So what I'd say to you is, maybe it's okay to sit down and have a conversation with your parents or your siblings or your friends and say, look, can I just bounce an idea off you? Now, the challenge with that is that they are emotionally invested in you and you being okay. So they may turn around and go, give him a scalp across the back of the head, or I'd burn the feckin' PlayStation. But that might not be helpful for you. So think about who you can have the conversation with, who might help you just talk it out. Not give you solutions, but help you talk it out to come up with the own ideas that might be best for you. What I will say, and like I referenced when I was reading it out, is that I hear so often when parents put a boundary in place, like, I'm taking the console off you, I'm taking the phone off you, I'm taking the tablet, I'm taking the laptop off you, that they will get you're just taking away the only thing that makes me happy, my only connection to my friends, and especially on the back of a pandemic where things have been in lockdown. So maybe your children haven't over the last couple of years been able to spend as much time with their friends. And oh my God, that hits the emotional heartstrings like a good punch in the gut. It is okay for you to absolutely take the console and take the phone off him. Okay, now you don't have to take them off him forever. What I'm saying to you is there can be a cut-off point. He is 14 years of age. You are fully in your right, and I know this is challenging. I know it's difficult because you're probably working all day. You're tired. The last thing you want to do is have an argument, and the chances are the teenagers are going to go further than you will in terms of fighting and being stubborn. Okay, but if that is the case, then I absolutely would take everything off him. He will survive without a phone. He will survive without a console. And I have yet to come across, and this is not medical advice or anything like that, but I've yet to come across a child who severely harmed themselves because they lost their phone or their console, right? You are the parent, and it's all right for you to change it. Now, some parents will feel like, well, I've given him the console, and he's had it in his bedroom overnight, and he has the phone in his bedroom overnight, so I can't change it. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You are allowed. He may kick up a fuss, and if he does, this is where you look at the options that are available to you. Do you have a friend or relative who can come and be a support for you in the evenings just for an hour or so to stop the kickoff or to be there? Now, it's not ideal, but we're not talking about something that's going to take forever and ever. Kids are really adaptable, and they'll understand that if you're being serious and being consistent, that you will stick to it. They'll usually fall into place. It might take a bit of time to that. If you don't have somebody who can come and help you out, and this is the real challenge, and I've said it a number of times, but if he gets to the point where he gets violent towards you or starts smashing things or throwing things around, or stealing your phone or your tablet and going, well, you're not getting these back until I get mine back, I would absolutely phone the guards or the police, wherever you're based, and I would get them charged. Now, that is an extreme, but what I'm saying is if they're getting violent or if they're stealing or smashing things up, then you need to let them know that there is a line that you won't let them cross. And now, hopefully, it won't get to that. So have a think about what way you want to introduce this. You know your son best. Do you want to say, right, well, okay, what I'm actually going to do is flip this on its head. So he has to earn his time on the console or on the phone. So he doesn't just have them, he has to earn it. So the console and phone come out of the bedroom at whatever, 9, half 9, 10 o'clock, whatever you decide is fair. And if it doesn't come out, for every 5 minutes it doesn't come out, he loses 15 minutes the next day. And this is where you have to be consistent. And it's hard. I completely understand that. But by you sticking to that, so then the next night he actually loses an hour because he took so long to get off it, well, then he starts to learn. And he'll get to the point where if he keeps pushing it, he won't get it at all during the day. And if he goes off to school without his phone, he'll be all right. He'll come home. He will make it home. He'll find his way. He doesn't need Google Maps to help him get home. So what I'd say to you is sit down, make a bit of a plan, write out, what way do I want this to look? Do I want it to be where he has to earn his time, or do I want to look at taking away if he just doesn't? Right? It's the same thing, but it's just how you phrase it. Earning time is seems like less of a consequence to the young person. Do I need somebody here to support me? Do I have a brother or sister or friend who'll call over for a cup of coffee every evening around about bedtime and can be there as an emotional support? And then if I don't, do I need to make a phone call to... Now, I know here in Ireland we have community guards and they are fantastic and they will come and they'll support you and help you figure things out, and will come and have a conversation with your child, and he'll be, mortified that you actually phoned the guards on him, but without getting him arrested, because if he hasn't done it, but they can come and have the conversation and start to take back the control of the home, because you can feel like you're not in control of things, and that can be the hardest piece. And also, you need a break. So, do you have someone that would maybe come and stay in your house and give you a night or two away? Or will the grandparents or sibling take him for a couple of nights, 2 or 3 nights, just to give you a break? And if all you do is just sleep, so be it. It's okay. Do that then. But please take care of yourself. Get your space. You need it. You deserve it, because you can't keep running empty, and that helps you clear your head. And what I'd say is get someone to come look after him while you're doing this planning, so you have that headspace, and get some time for yourself. Decide what you're going to do and put it into practice, and that's all you can do. When we try something different, it may or may not work, but it might, and hopefully it will. Okay, so there's no 5 p.m. Q&A tomorrow, but next week there is an 8 p.m. book launch Q&A. So guys, please come along. The Zoom link is available everywhere, and I really look forward to seeing you at the book launch next week. Have a wonderful week, and please take care of yourselves. See you later.